encourage your soul, enlighten your mind, and empower your faith. This is the Light Network. Welcome to another edition of the Light Network Specials. I'm Robert Hatfield, coming to you once again from the exhibit hall floor at Polishing the Pulpit in Sevierville, Tennessee. We're very excited today to be featuring and learning a little bit more about Appian Media. And here to help us with that is a guy who knows a little bit about this organization, Craig Dehut. Did I say that correctly?
Yep.
My autocorrect wants to make you be Dehub or something like that. Do you deal with that often?
Yes, frequently, but usually it helps. You make the Star Wars joke, the Jabba the Hutt, and they tend to say it more accurately.
Okay,
so, yep.
All right. Welcome, sir. Thanks for coming on.
I'm thrilled to be here. This is great.
So, Appian Media.
Yes.
Let's begin. Just tell us what Appian Media is. What do you guys do?
So we go over to the lands of the Bible and we create biblical documentaries. We try to help people visualize the story of the Bible by taking them not just near the places, but as close into it as much as we possibly can. And then
what a job y'all have.
It's rough.
Bless your hearts.
It really is rough.
You know.
Actually, sometimes it really is rough.
I'm sure.
But then we give the videos away for free online. They can go to appianmedia.org or our YouTube channel and watch the videos that we create. And it really did. It started with myself and Stuart Peck, our other co-founder, noticing a lack of high quality and free biblical media that we could use specifically in our classrooms, but then we want it for our home studies, we want it for our group studies. And so after complaining about it for a while, he and I finally said, it was Stuart who was like, why can't we do it? We're both video producers by trade. Yeah. And so we took our first trip to Israel in 2016 and became a non-for-profit. And God has blessed us with 3 total trips to Israel, a trip to Turkey, and then we came back in October from Egypt and Jordan.
Wow.
Producing a series on the Exodus.
Okay.
So we're just
exciting.
Thrilled to be able to do it and been doing it long enough now that we're hearing from people who've been able to watch it, how it's enriched their study of the Bible.
Right.
It's helped them really kind of visualize and put some pieces together, geographical and historical and even cultural pieces together that maybe they hadn't previously, and for us that's indication of a job well done.
Well, you all do what you do so well. I mean, first of all, just the videography, the quality of everything, photography in some cases as well.
Yeah.
It's just so good. And then the way that you weave it all together, the story aspect of it, I hope that's not a bad way to refer to it.
That's a great way to, we have a story team.
Sure, so, okay, great. Yeah. I want to know all the things about all of these things.
Yes.
But first, so your background is in videography. You were kind of doing not this, but this.
Correct.
Before.
Yeah. So I went to film school. I graduated back in 2007.
Okay.
Stuart had taken a similar path, different schools, but he was focused more on kind of television news.
Okay.
We found out later that our paths had actually crossed just later from each other. We both worked at the same television station in Bowling Green.
What?
Yeah, it's really remarkable.
How did you two meet?
We had moved to the Indianapolis area around the same time.
Oh, okay.
And my brother had said, hey, I know a Christian guy who does video, and you're a Christian guy who does video, and there aren't very many of us.
You guys got to stick together in that industry.
Have coffee.
Yeah.
And sat down, had coffee, and it was maybe the second or third time we got together just to talk shop.
Yeah.
That this idea came up. He was in the middle of teaching a high school Bible class, and he was saying, the kids are coming into class and they're doing this.
Yes.
And then we tell them, put all that away.
Right.
And now open the book.
Now we're going to talk
Bible. And there's nothing wrong with the book.
Right.
The book is powerful.
Yeah.
But the kids learn differently now. How they consume the Bible is different than it was. And so Stuart was like, why can't we do this and the book?
Yes.
and figure out a way to do those things together and get them engaged again.
Not only do the kids learn differently now, but we have all of these tools and resources.
Right.
I mean, it's no wonder they learn differently now.
Right.
We all do in one form or
Because
another.
it's coming at in so many different
And
ways.
there's something,
yeah.
it's one thing to read 1 Samuel 17 with David and Goliath. It's another thing to see the wadi
Yes.
where he likely went and selected the 5 smooth
Yes.
stones. Right?
In fact, we just covered this in our adult Bible class yesterday morning.
Oh.
And so the preacher had asked, do you have any photos of the Valley of Elah?
Do
It's
you
like,
have
I've got
any
a couple.
photos?
I could probably provide that. and it was refreshing. It really was. So he showed the photos, and then we read the text. And it does something different in our minds.
It does.
To be able to put ourselves in that real place. These are not fairy tales. And to go, these were real places. These were real people.
Right.
And
Well, in the majority of time, the only frame of reference we have is whatever illustration was provided in the children's Bible storybook that we grew up with or read to our children or something. So,
and some of those are very good.
Sure.
And some of them are not.
Most likely.
And they do, I think they do the best that they can.
Yes.
But what's better than going to the actual place?
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to do.
So the first trip that you all took was to where? You mentioned them a minute ago.
Correct. So we went to Israel in June of 2016, and that was to produce the first 5 episodes of what we call Following the Messiah, which is a series about the life of Jesus.
We watched all of those during COVID, and that was wonderful.
Well, I'm so glad.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I could talk quite a bit about what happened during COVID for Appian Media and for churches.
Yeah.
But we had never done anything like this before. I had never traveled internationally before.
What? Really?
We had certainly never done a production of this size, of this scope.
And you don't just go over there and, I mean, people do. They take cameras and fancy equipment and all of that, but you guys somehow you weasel your way into, I'm sure it's not weaseling.
We make friends.
Yeah,
we make friends.
You make friends, but it's like you get exclusive access type stuff, it seems.
And look, we do months and months of planning on the front end of it. And we purchase the permits. We do not just show up at a location.
Right.
And we've got people over there that, are connections that Barry Britnell has been leading tours over to Israel for many years.
Yes.
And so he already had people over there that he could connect with. But then there were moments where, regardless of all the planning, we ask, hey, can we film that? Can
you
we
have
do
not
that?
because
And
you ask not. I've
that's
read that
exactly
somewhere.
Right. Now, sometimes they say, no, you crazy Americans, get out of here. More often than not, they say, well, we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Or, what can we do?
Yes, yeah.
But we've been so blessed with opportunities that, really, I think have been just providential. And, for example, COVID. Our plan was to go to Turkey in May of 2020, and obviously that did not happen.
It didn't happen.
However, while Turkey and Greece closed for most of that year, Turkey reopened in the latter part of 2020. And we said we could try to take that trip now. And we did, and it was difficult to travel, but once we got there, no one was in Turkey.
Yeah.
And so we had most
You're
of
going
these
to
sites
all these places.
pretty
Nobody's
wide
around.
open. Yeah, very thankful for things like that.
What kind of, talk about just the sheer amount of luggage you're having to lug over there. I mean,
That's
it's
why
not,
we bring production assistants.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, and I say that to speak to the degree, the quality that you all are producing. I mean, it's not just you and Stuart going over there with a little handheld,
we thought about
camcorder.
it.
Okay.
We thought about it.
And I'm sure that would have yielded okay results, but I mean, you've got lights, you've got multiple cameras, you've got drones. I mean, you're doing it all over there.
And I know for those who've seen the behind-the-scenes videos, they probably think that's so much equipment. Stuart and I both know a typical set would have significantly more. A typical shoot of this kind domestically would have more. So it is pared down, if you can believe it. But you're talking 8 to 10 hard cases full of gear that need to come with us. And depending on the situation, we're carrying bags and carrying the gear with us. What do we need? We have learned over the years what can stay home and what we
Okay.
can do without.
Yeah.
I am thankful to say that most of the gear has been getting lighter and smaller
Yes.
as the technology has advanced, which is so nice. But yeah, we're
Even
we're
since
all
2016, which is
we're all
wild.
equipment mules when we're
Yes.
over there. We're carrying multiple bags, hiking up mountains, and using whatever we can.
That's
So,
the next. But you don't just drive up to some of these sites.
No,
Park in the parking lot.
some of them we do.
Sure.
Israel especially. Most of these sites that you want to go see, tourists have been coming to those places for hundreds of years.
Right.
So they do. They have a parking lot right up to the edge. I mean, those were the days. Those were really
Those
nice.
were the days.
But Egypt and Jordan, for example, there is very little out there that you can pinpoint with certainty and say the Israelites were here or the Israelites took this path.
Right.
It's wilderness and they were nomadic. They didn't leave a lot behind. And so you're taking trucks out into the desert. There's no road of any kind. You're just driving through sand.
It's an immersive experience for you guys.
Yeah, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's grueling work. It is no vacation.
Right. How long are you there when you
But
take these trips? How long? do they
Typically, it's
typ-
about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Usually 13 or 14 days of production, perhaps with a day of travel on either side. That's about as much as we can ask of our team.
Talk about the research that goes in leading up to those trips. I mean, there's got to be
Yes.
months and months of planning and logistics
Yes.
to make those 13 or 14 days of filming even possible and productive.
Right. So we've kind of got, like I said, we have a story team, and in years past that has involved Jeremy Dehut, who's actually my oldest brother.
Okay. I noticed
Justin-
the last name
yeah.
there. And he sort of functions as the host of these.
He is in many of the series. He's the host, and he does a lot of the stuff on the front end as far as making sure that we're deep in the biblical text,
Good.
that we're accurately representing that, because if we miss that, it doesn't matter how beautifully we've shot it. And so Jeremy does a lot of that. In the last few years, Justin Dobbs, who's actually my brother-in-law as well,
Family affair.
they work together to craft that story, because it's not simply a matter of we need to tell the Bible story, but in video, what parts do we tell? In what order do we present the information? Where are the episode breaks? And then we work together, usually with Barry Britnell. As I said, he's been leading tours over to Israel for many years. And then our executive producer, Dan Kingsley, who serves as a photographer on most of our trips, actually.
Oh, okay.
Dan has been everywhere in those lands of the Bible. And together, those four really kind of work out this is what the Bible story is. What places can we go to show that? Is that even practical? Have they even found that city, for example?
Right.
And then the creative team, and that fluctuates as well, but normally it consists of Stuart and myself. For many years, it involved Jet Kaiser, who's a good friend of ours who lives in Indiana as well. He has accompanied us on all of our trips. And so we talk about, okay, this is the story, this is where we'll go, what do we need to shoot that? What's the style, what's the tone, what gear can we bring, how do we accomplish that? And that process, those things, that takes months and months
No doubt.
to do. So
And then you all are I was thinking about just the story part of this. Sometimes you're having shots of someone who's using what looks almost like a quill on parchment, and you're zooming in really slowly, and it's all buttery smooth. But I mean, that adds to the story. You're got a shot of somebody lighting an oil lamp. I mean, things like that help to bring their world. It's more than just, well, this is a place where something happened. There's a bit of recreating even history.
There is, and that's something we've started to do in the last few years. And so, yes, in fact, our preacher, his name is Tommy Peeler. He used to teach down at Florida College in Tampa, but knows Hebrew and knows Greek, can write it. and so
as one does.
As one does, right? And so originally it was going to be, who can we know that can write a couple of Greek characters and get away with it on camera? And then it was like,
the magic of
Tommy.
Hollywood.
And he said, well, how much of Revelation 1 would you like me to write out?
What?
And so he just starts writing it.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it's those little creative bits that we went to Turkey, we shot the footage, and after we came back and started to edit, we thought, the creative team did, we still need some of these elements.
Okay.
What can we shoot
You can
here
recreate
in the
some
studio?
stateside. Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's
And I
amazing.
love that.
Yeah.
Not that we reinvent the wheel every time, but we are trying to push ourselves creatively in order to serve the story, in order to serve the text. What can we do to get the right kind of visuals in people's minds?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So backing up a little bit, I've got the website pulled up here. I'll share that for our friends who are watching us at home. You have a series now of videos that you have produced.
Correct.
Following the Messiah was the first?
That's correct. And
Okay.
that took 2 separate trips to Israel to produce. That was 10 full episodes
Wow.
for that series.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Searching for a King, we also watched every one of these during COVID.
Correct.
we had a lot of time during COVID.
Yes, we did.
So that was a cool one. You were going through the United Kingdom.
That's correct.
Good.
Yeah, so we started with the last judge, with Samuel,
Mm-hmm.
and then we covered Saul and David and Solomon. And as we started to develop that story, we very quickly realized that there are many within the historical world and archaeological world that doubt the existence of David at all. They treat him as a mythical kind of King Arthur figure.
Mm-hmm.
And so we very quickly decided I think the best approach to tell this story is to let's talk about the evidence. So let's interview archaeologists. Let's talk to people who are, doing the archaeological digs at Shiloh. Let's talk to, his name is Gabriel Barkai. He's been living in Jerusalem for most of his life, sifting the dirt that has been found underneath of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem.
Wow.
Let's talk to the experts
Yeah.
and reinforce our faith in the biblical text. David was a real person. He really was the king of Israel. That remains one of my favorite series that we've done.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
And in part, there was much enlightening about the Following the Messiah, but in part because maybe we are a little less familiar, maybe particularly with some parts of that Old Testament culture or those Old Testament civilizations. Right. Maybe we don't see as many pictures of some of those remote parts as we do the Temple Mount, for example.
Right.
So it helped to bring into familiarity some things that maybe there were some gaps in, which was nice. Lessons from the Land.
Yeah, so what we decided to do was actually...
We've watched this as well, by the way. Sorry,
my kids love this one.
Yeah.
Love these series. This was actually a concept that Barry had come up with, where because of his trips, he had created a series of lessons where he kind of focused on a location and drew some application from that. And so we had asked him to, he may have actually pitched the idea to us, making it for a younger audience. And so those are videos that are hosted primarily by Barry, 4 to 5 minute videos. So each lesson is a very short little piece of video, and we took the viewers through the gospel story, not necessarily telling it fully chronological, but just 13 moments, 13 locations from the gospel story. And then we've just recently released the Lessons from the Land of the Kings, where we did the same thing using Searching for a King, using the United Kingdom time period.
Cool.
And that has become something that we plan to do with all future series. We're working on, to skip a little ahead, we're working on Out of Egypt, the story of the Exodus. But at the same time, we're working on Lessons from the Land, the Exodus. So we'll have a children's version of it as well.
Breaking news. You heard it here. I'm sure
That's
they
right.
didn't. I'm sure they didn't hear it here
They
first.
should know about it by now. We did a fundraiser back in August of last year. So
Trial and Triumph is it the latest, or has the Out of Egypt, has that one come out yet?
I am currently editing Out of Egypt.
All right.
So it's coming.
No pressure, but I mean, we're waiting.
I know.
Sorry.
So it's my family.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, good.
Trial and Triumph was the latest feature that we released, and that was released back in the end of 2021.
Okay.
And that covers the 7 churches of Revelation mentioned in Revelation 1 through 3. What we'll do with the rest of the book of Revelation is to be determined. I don't know where we'll go exactly to shoot chapters 4 and on.
Right.
But we were able to visit those 7 locations in Turkey, as well as, and this was a decision of our story team, we interviewed and talked with individuals from around the world who are also experiencing similar types of trials that those 7 churches experienced.
Yeah.
So we spoke to a young married couple as they were planning to travel to Sierra Leone and do evangelistic work over there. We spoke with Jeremy's family, truthfully, and highlighted a very difficult and very intimate part of their family, and how they learned from tragedy. And we interviewed other people and kind of wove those modern day stories into the stories of the 7 churches.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Out of Egypt has been filmed.
It has been filmed.
Okay.
Most of it, yes.
Yeah. Maybe the recreated stateside
There's going to be
stuff.
some domestic stuff
Okay.
that should happen the next few weeks.
Okay.
So, yes.
That's exciting.
Yes.
How is all of this? You mentioned we did a fundraiser for this. I mean, this is amazing quality. Obviously, I mean, airfare, you're shipping a bunch of equipment. You have this equipment or you rent it or whatever you do.
Correct.
Obviously, there's monetary needs that are involved with this.
Right.
This is an informational bit. This isn't, if you call this number, and pledge whatever. And we're not saying that.
$19.95 and 4 payments.
That's right. Our call centers are standing by. But how is your work supported, or if someone is interested, how can they help?
Yeah, if someone's interested in helping, as I mentioned, we're a non-for-profit, and so people can visit our website. There's a donation button at the top, and all of our productions are produced and funded by the donations of individuals. You can either choose to do a one-time donation, or many of our donors choose to donate even just a small amount every month as a recurring donation. They get special access to behind-the-scenes footage. In fact, we call them members. Our members actually just got to see a scene from Out of Egypt as I've been editing it together. So that type of stuff is made available to our donors.
Good.
And as the years have gone on, we've seen continued support through that. And we've been incredibly blessed. It's been such an encouraging thing for me to see God's people rise up. And I hear from families, and I have since I was going to film school, families saying, I'm tired of what Hollywood's putting out. I wish that there were good things that I could show my family. But many of us, and myself included, are often hesitant to put our money where our mouth is.
Sure.
And so it has been such an encouragement to me. So many people have said, we love what you're doing. We want more of it. How quickly can you make it? And we want to help.
Yeah.
And so we were blessed last October to do one of the largest fundraising campaign that we had to do. Filming in Egypt and Jordan was exceptionally expensive. Film permits were thousands of dollars a piece for one location.
Wow.
And just because of the nature of the countries there, we had to rent most of our gear over there rather than bring in our own. And so that, but people rose to the challenge.
Sure.
And were such an encouragement to us to allow us to do that. And are continuing to donate so that the post-production, which there's continuing costs with that, so that our team can edit this as quickly as we can. So
Okay.
yeah.
One thing we haven't mentioned, I mean, you guys do so much. You also produce, shall we say, book forms of your videos?
That's
I mean,
correct.
that almost seems
should
like
have
an
brought a couple.
impossibility. But
Yes. So Jeremy and Barry and Justin, quite a bit of work is done by Justin, help produce these written workbooks that after the first couple of years, we very quickly realized people want the videos, but they need help to connect what they're seeing to what they're reading in the text. And so these workbooks have QR codes at the beginning of every chapter where you can scan them and it'll show you that portion of video.
Oh, that's cool.
And then it'll give you the biblical text that you're supposed to read and some great commentary from Jeremy and Barry and Justin. Even Stuart wrote some in our Trial and Triumph. And then they provide these really thought-provoking, kind of open-ended discussion questions. And these workbooks are intended for, they're broken down, most of them, in what could be done in like a Bible class setting. But we know that homeschool families are using these small group studies, in-home studies, and we're pleased to make that available.
It's neat.
Those are for purchase.
Sure.
But the funds that we raise from those go into the next project.
Right. They're beautiful. They're full color.
That's right.
And it's just that's sort of what I was thinking about when I thought about the photography aspect of that. And even if some of that is just a still from your video, it's still beautiful. It looks great.
Right. I can brag on those books because I have very little to do with them.
Okay.
So I'm bragging on the rest of the team. I mean, the photography in there is a lot of it coming from Dan.
Yeah.
And just to be able to put together a resource that it is very, very rich stuff. Mm-hmm. And I've used it myself. I've taught junior high classes and adult classes through a lot of it. And
is that sort of the level where you think it's sort of pitched?
Good question. So the Following Messiah, Searching for a King, and Trial and Triumph, I'd say junior high and up.
Okay. The
Lessons from the Land, those are, again, specifically geared towards grade school.
Okay.
So I would,
got it.
First, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, I'd take them through the Lessons from the Land.
Okay. So those are the videos, and then you can basically pick up at that point with the workbooks.
Yep.
And the other videos that are there.
That's right.
The vast majority of what you all produce is absolutely free.
That's correct.
AppianMedia.org.
AppianMedia.org.
Is that the best place to go?
You can go to YouTube and just search for Appian Media. I'd say that's probably our largest viewing audience.
Okay.
And that really has allowed our content now to be seen in over 160 countries.
Wow.
Which really does get back to the name Appian.
Yes.
We base that off of the Appian Way. That was the Roman roadway that they made in the first century that connected all of these nations as they were working their way, taking over the world. But it's one of the reasons why historians tell us that Christianity likely spread as quickly as it did, because there was suddenly a roadway already there. And so we're choosing to use the internet and media as an existing roadway to spread the gospel to parts of the world that we likely will never visit ourselves. But 160 countries and counting is being blessed with this content.
And it's pretty neat. To put
Praise
it mildly.
God. Yeah, praise God for
That's
that.
right.
Yep.
Aaron Dodson is watching, and he says, Appian Media is awesome. Please keep up the good work.
Well, thank you so much.
There you go. How do you determine what's next? I mean, are you all alternating Old Testament, New Testament? Do you have a goal of like some representation of every book of the Bible? I mean, because okay, good. Because what tipped me off to that was you said, well, I don't really know what we're going to do for the rest of Revelation. And I thought,
it's going to be done.
Okay.
It's going to be done. That is a long-term goal. And I know it sounds simple, but it really has to do with funding.
Sure.
If the funding is there, our team, none of us currently are doing this full-time.
Okay.
But if we could do this full-time, we could be releasing videos more frequently than one about every year. And so the goal is cover to cover. We want to be able to provide some kind of media and some kind of material so that you can study through the Bible.
Wow.
So what's next? We have a list, and it's an ever-growing list. The Exodus and Paul's missionary journeys have probably been the most frequently suggested.
Good.
And both of those have been, well, right now that's impossible for us. It's too expensive and too difficult. And
right.
But we found a way to do the Exodus, and people stepped up and allowed us to do that. I would love for us to do Paul's missionary journeys. We were able to visit some of those sites when we did the 7 churches. Obviously, Ephesus. We did make a stop at Miletus and shoot content there that no one has actually seen yet. But we've shot content there.
It's there, yeah.
But how do you tackle that? Paul covered a lot of ground in those various trips, and then eventually made his way to Rome. But we'll do it. Lord willing, we'll do it.
Good.
I would love for us to see us do a series on the divided kingdom and specifically the prophets who prophesied during that time period.
Yes.
because that's a period of biblical history that I'm always a bit fuzzy on.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, selfishly,
Yeah.
I want to see that and help kind of put those pieces together.
Yeah. Were they in the north and or the south?
Right.
To
was
what
the
extent
king
did they
and-
overlap?
Right.
Yeah. Is it pre-exilic or post-exilic?
Right.
Yeah, all those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, a lot to choose from.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Okay. The last question I have is one actually my wife wanted me to ask, and so I have to ask it.
Sure.
Of all of the places that you've traveled, I know, you know, where is the place, here's the way that she put it, that you felt the closest to God or that helped you draw the closest to God?
That's phrased differently
Okay.
than it often is.
Yes.
That's a good question.
She should be doing this interview right now.
Can I give you a couple?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. One was when we were in the Garden of Gethsemane. That has now become a very small area on the Mount of Olives. It's looking back at the city of Jerusalem. And while we were there, Barry pointed out to us, and it's in one of the videos, but he pointed out to us, look, there's a valley between here and there. And so when the soldiers came to get Jesus, when the mob came to get Jesus while he was praying, Jesus would have been able to very clearly see them go down the valley and come up the valley. He would have had more than enough time to turn around and flee. And yet he stayed right there and waited. And I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying it. Yeah. And as Barry told it to us, and it kind of dawned on me to see that that's the gate they would have come out of. They would have gone down, and Jesus stayed put.
Wow.
And in other situations, he passed himself in a crowd and made himself scarce. But in that moment, he stayed put. So the garden was really impactful for us. And then being able to climb up, and this could open up a big debate, but Mount Sinai, right?
Okay. Yes.
the traditional Mount Sinai in the Sinai Peninsula. We hiked.
Whatever. You had to be close, okay? Wherever you were, you had to be close.
Right? Yeah. It was somewhere between Egypt and Canaan.
Closer
right?
than we are in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains, so that's good.
to hike all the way up that, we got delayed going up, and so we were chasing the sun. We were trying to get up there and shooting before the sun set. And so we were absolutely exhausted. But then we got to sleep up at the top under the stars with a group of Bedouins up there, and then woke up in the morning to the sunrise, and just to think about, Moses being up there and receiving what at the time was the most intimate communication that God had given to an individual, to a people. So we had cameras rolling. I had time lapses going in every direction, but then we just kind of got to sit and watch the sun come up. That was really cool.
Yeah.
That was really, really powerful to consider what God had done up on Mount Sinai. Yeah.
You all produce outstanding materials. Go and check it out if you haven't already. AppianMedia.org. Search them on YouTube. Pull it up on your smart TV and enjoy the high quality of all of that. But you also produce it in unique ways, and as you say, ways that are accurate, ways that are true to the text, ways that are honest. This is the traditional side. You have to say a lot of that kind of stuff when you're talking about the Bible lands. We don't know exactly where Moses went up the mountain, but we know it was in this range. But at the same time, super educational. Wow. And it's impacted us a lot. And we haven't been to many of those places that you've just described.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you brought it home to us and to 160 other countries. So
we're glad to do it.
Thank you for that. We appreciate you all very much.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on.
Oh, honored to have you. I was thrilled that you accepted. AppianMedia.org. Thank you, Mr. Craig Dehut. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for this edition of the Light Network Specials. Thanks for being a part of our episode today. Hope you'll join us next time, and you can find all of our content online, thelightnetwork.tv. See you then.